Go ahead, whenever we started.
I guess after doing something like that, or I'll just start with asking a question of, and we can say anything, but what, after experiencing something like that, and then everything else that we usually do together, what life is as a totality, like everything that life is, and what is life?
What do I think life is?
Sure.
I mean, of course, you're going to have your different opinions about life, of course, like everyone thinks differently.
Well, life is going to have, yeah, but it's going to be all of those things, because life is going to be, depending on what you say it is, but we can...
Well, that's what I'm saying, but like what I consider life might not be what someone else considers life. You know what I'm saying? Like, obviously breathing, eating, like, you know, getting our essential, whatever we need to keep our bodies going, like, that's obvious. But like, as far as like living your life,
like we just went on a hike, so that hike
right,
was like super...
Right, some people get a kick out of hiking. I get a kick out, I like it, and some people get a high off of hiking. I don't know if I get a high off of it, but I really enjoy it.
Well, they get a little deeper under hiking. It's more than just nature. It's nature. It's water,
it's a lot more than just nature. Like, it gives me an opportunity to like maybe escape in my own thoughts. That's totally nothing to do with nature. Like, it's just time, like basically like time for myself. Like when I go for a run, I'd rather go to the park and hit a trail, just like when we hike. It's the same kind of hiking trails. I'd rather go and run that because it's just like, I don't know, like the scenery, for one. The scenery, it's awesome to see that shit. It's awesome. But I think what makes life is things that make you happy. If you don't do things that make you happy, to me, you're not living. Basically, like, point blank, simple answer. What I think life is, if you're not happy, you ain't living. So if you're not making yourself happy or doing things that you like, I mean, it could be literally anything in the fucking world. I don't think you're living your life. I mean, like, you might think you are. You're breathing, yeah, and you're walking around and you're taking up matter. You're taking up space somewhere.
But all that's life too.
Right.
Breathing, taking up matter. But even the person that's depressed, even the person that's not doing all those things, even the person
now, okay, so take the depressed person. So they're breathing, yeah, obviously they got life, absolutely. But what are they doing? They're depressed, so maybe chances are they're not feeling like going out, like, which you don't have to go out necessarily, but maybe they don't even want to go outside the house, which, I mean, sure, maybe you could keep yourself inside the house and still live a good life. I mean, I wouldn't want to do that, but maybe that's just you. But I mean, at some point you got to think about it, unless you're like this A1 farmer or creator of like a lot of necessity items. I mean, you got to leave your house and go get supplies at some point, I would think. I mean, it only makes sense to me. I'm not going to make my own toilet paper.
Well, all right, so yeah, so life is all those things. Like, even though you kind of get more into like what I guess living a healthy life is, or what actually living is, but life would be. It's all of that. It's not only the happiness that we encounter, but it's also the sadness and the sorrows we encounter, and it's all of that as one. Like, there's a flow, there's a stream, and that stream's going to encompass everything you can think of as far as the way people live. If it was you giving your version of the life, but we encompass everything. So, all right, life is doing what you want, it's leaving the house, it's being happy, but then there's
not just being happy, it's all that's all the emotions, like you said, but that's all in your head. That's all, emotions are all mentality. Like, what makes you sad probably not necessarily going to make me sad. It depends on that person, man. Like, and like, I think it's all a mental thing. It's totally all a mental thing. Life is a mental thing. Life is going to be based on how the fuck you see shit, and what you decide to do about shit. That's going to be what determines life, or what you consider your life, what it is. So I think it's going to be a big mentality.
So that's how people have lived. They live mentally. They live by, all right, I'm going to train myself if I have fear, or to not feel pain, or there's so many ways to look at it. But here's life and everything that encompasses in life within this. If we give it a word or a metaphor, a stream, and there's everything in life that encompasses all that. And so, all right, I want to become better at something, or I want to not feel something. And so there's only a couple ways to go about it. Either you suppress it, you try to control it, you try to master it, but no matter what, that thing is going to always be there, whether it's whether you're trying to, I mean, you can't always have happiness, or whether you're trying to chase happiness, which then ends up creating the suffering, because in those moments when you don't have happiness, you're either working a 9 to 5. I mean, this is life. We go to a 9 to 5, or we go to school, and we chase something that we think is going to make us successful, that's going to give us a certain life that society has, and then we say that's happiness, that I'm gonna work a 9 to 5, but I'm gonna justify and end up trying to understand it in my own way, so that it makes me somehow not hate my life, but I'm gonna look forward to my vacations. I'm gonna look forward to spending time with family, instead of always spending time with family and just always instead of always all right, so we can't have the way of I'm always on vacation, or I'm always or I can't work, so that's always going to be there. So if we look at that, I mean, all right, what are we asking? So I asked what life is. All right, so what's our relationship with all of that, with not only the happiness that we have, so what's your relationship with that? Is what we're doing. I mean, we're trying to chase a happiness through trying to set certain dates to go on a vacation, to set certain dates to do something.
Always plan ahead.
What is my relationship also with the news that I see on the media, with the coronavirus, with this whole thing in Afghanistan, with just people with rape, with not only happiness, but because those things seem to be the easiest things. My relationship with my happiness is something that I seem to always kind of be intertwined with, or always thinking about. All right, when can I get my next meal? When can I have my next good meal? When can I have my next vacation? When am I going to get off work? And I'm living in the future because I'm trying to chase happiness. So we can look at our relationship with that, but then what is also our relationship with, because these are important questions to ask, what is my relationships with violence, with what's going on in the world, and what am I doing about it? So the question of, I mean, how many people are actually saying that they want something, whether it's, there is your individuality, but I think everybody in a sense has a certain, I want something out of the whole of humanity, or something hurts me out of humanity that I would want to change. But it seems like we just don't go after those questions or ask those questions of how things can be different, and instead we just choose to stay in a flow. And,
well, you get used to things, a routine, like a routine, so to speak, or just like almost like nostalgia. Like we're so used to things how they were back then. So when things change up or come out looking different, it's like, man, that sucks, because that's not what I remember. It's like basically the same thing. Things that you get used to are things that you look for. Basically.
All right, and so this is what I always want to look at with discussions. And so we ask why. Why am I always, I don't want to use the word suffering, but then why am I always kind of chasing the past, or why do I always want things to always be the way they were, either with nostalgia things that you're used to, or even with family and with loved ones, and with death and with people that pass on, and we always, the brain, or what is it, or just why do we always, as human beings, because you see it all the time, want to hold on to the past,
I think it's easier for most people to just try to keep living that or reliving that. I think it's easier for most. It's like a comfort zone thing. It may not be the best decision, or it might not be healthy. I don't know, but it's it's not going to be the best thing. But that's just what people are going to do because that's what they're used to.
But I ask you, people do even ask that question, because then they ask that question, they say it's easier. Then is that actually easier, reliving certain pain, or somehow? If there's so many ways to go about it, it's a complex question. But if I miss somebody, or if I wish something was around, or I have memories that end up, if there's an attachment to it that end up making me somehow in some kind of conflict and suffering and sorrow, what happens in that moment when I'm caught in that moment of the past? Whether it's, but that's all it is. When you're caught in the past, you're going to be caught in some kind of conflict. You're going to be caught in some kind of...
It's hard to move forward. Like, it's hard to keep going and moving to the next step if all you do is try to relive the past, or if you're stuck in the past.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but most people are just not really wanting to or willing to, like, move on from that. You know what I'm saying?
And it's like, why? Because we're willing to move. We're willing to move physically. If something's gonna happen, all right, here's a fire and it's coming towards me. I'm willing to move. Then I'm willing to move if there's a car coming right at me. So physically, we're willing to move out of danger. We're willing to move if we know something's gonna come. I'm willing to move if I know that me going to a bar is gonna cause me to cheat on my wife, or I'm willing to move if I really say that I love her, or whatever that feeling is, or I'm willing to move to get a better job because it helps provide for my kids. So physically we're willing to move all day. We're willing to do things that are gonna make us safe. But then we look at the psychological part of it, and it's like, why don't we do it within that sort of instance?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be different for everyone, though, man. You can't really. I don't think there's never going to be an answer for what is life or what is anything, what is love.
But if you think about it super deep, without always kind of answering quickly, we can see like, all right, well, I mean, it's not to say that it's different for everybody. I mean, but that's where the individuality comes in. And so if I'm looking at myself as an individual and saying, all right, your life's different than my life, then it gets into that. But the only thing different is the physical differences of like what I'm doing. But my consciousness, my psychological, my whole psyche is not different than anybody else's. As far as, yeah, I want happiness. I'm gonna chase. I wish I could have happiness all the time. I wish I could have joy all the time.
Right. Okay.
I'm faced with
okay, hold on.
The world's problems.
But you, like when it comes to like relationships, you're like fuck feelings. Like don't like if you got like a bucket list. If you got ambitions in life, like fuck it. I mean, maybe not necessarily ambitions, but like things that you want to do, which is what a bucket list is. Like basically, like fuck that, scratch that. I mean, like me personally, I'm like, fuck yeah for a bucket list. Let's do all that shit. Let's do more than that shit. Like fuck it, let's go and do that and then some. Like why not?
Well, let's take it one at a time. Because if I say I got a bucket list, it's okay to want to do stuff. I mean, there's no right or wrong, but
yeah,
to say that these are these things that I want to do. So what's going to happen if death comes and you don't get to do those things?
Well, that's what the whole fun in like trying to do as many as you can before that time comes. That's why it's a bucket list.
So us as human beings we should have a bucket list and chase fun.
I would say so, yeah.
And what kind of humanity is
I mean, but that's not gonna make me crazy. Like for one, like this is something that I'm used to not having. Like say I want to fucking go to a Super Bowl. Like that's always been like a dream of mine. That's always been like, that's a bucket list number one. Fuck yeah, let me go to a Super Bowl. But you know what? I'm so used to not ever going to a Super Bowl that it's, you know, like basically if it happens, fuck yeah, cool. I can check something off my bucket list. That's something I really wanted to fucking do. But it's not nothing that I went out.
Super Bowl, but what about people that have a bucket list and then we start seeing, all right, but people have a certain. If we have a bucket list, we call it the bucket list, but it's certain things that I want to do in life. And some people aren't so innocent, or even if you want to go to the Super Bowl, you're
like what if I want to kill somebody before I die type shit.
Yeah,
like,
or Super Bowl, even the Super Bowl, somehow you're contributing to conflict. So, I mean, we're not getting into anything right or wrong. We're just looking at a mirror. So you want to go to a Super Bowl, just keep it on that, because I mean, I think this can go anywhere. Or I want to go on all these countries, so I'm paying for plane tickets.
Yeah.
But me paying for plane, let's look at the Super Bowl. Me paying for a Super Bowl is now keeping. So I mean, with me, where I would go and think about that, I guess keep it where it's not getting so deep. Is like, all right, well, why do these football players? I mean, and I know why, it's capitalism, but that's good because we're going to get there with politics and capitalism. The whole economic division starts coming about with things like that. So my bucket list, and I know this isn't talking about you, but just people, my bucket list might be something where it's spending money. So I'm trying to spend money to go to the Super Bowl, or let's just keep it on that. I see in sports, and this is what I see, that people are so engulfed in it to where these sports people make a lot of money because you're buying their jerseys, you're spending all this money to buy tickets, you know, that they get viewers on TV, they get all these things. And our society tends to put those kind of people seem to have more of a voice with like certain movements or certain groups of war or Black Lives Matter or taking a knee and all that. And then teachers on a whole opposite side, teachers seem to get the less money, but teachers are, if they're the whole cause of, or they're the responsibility of our whole future of humanity, why do teachers, or we see this all the time with whoever you want to put in the teacher's position, get just less respect, less money, and the celebrities get so much more money? But we can see it because people, we don't want to use the word idol, but maybe we idolize these people. We buy their jerseys, we buy their tickets, we spend all this money. There's billions and billions of dollars that go into sports teams, because you can start seeing that people have this inner conflict of, I need to escape. I need to find, football is my,
it's a definite stress
thing.
reliever. So
Yeah,
it's like
stress
just
reliever.
like concerts or amusement parks,
So can
attractions.
can we have a humanity that doesn't? I live my life and I don't need a stress reliever. Like what that whole question means. I live, and as I live my life, I don't have a certain hole that I need to fill as far as waiting to go on a vacation or waiting to stress relieve. If we can get to a point where this takes questions, but where I can see every moment of my life without a past or a future, and then therefore there's the present, there's the beauty, there's the magnificence of all of it, then I'm always seems to be fulfilled. There's no reason to be, all right, I need something, or I'm looking forward to something, because
So basically, like sitting in a chair in an empty house, or not even a house, not doing anything at all.
that's where the brain, that's what
That's what
starts to imagine things. That's not what you're doing.
That's what it makes it sound like.
You
you
just have a
don't want to do anything, like go anywhere to it. You don't like. You
No,
don't need a
I didn't
concert.
say none of that.
No, I thought you were trying to say like, why don't like that? You were saying something about the need for that is unnecessary, basically.
We have the fact that I need to go. I need to plan ahead to do something, because I feel like that's gonna somehow. Why do we plan ahead for things like that? Does it fulfill us, or does it make it seem like
okay, for me, it's like I like having that anxiousness of like, I know it's coming, like louder than life. Like I have those tickets, I got my hotel booked. Like that's gonna happen.
Do we
when
not
that
see
time
what that
comes.
does with like when you have that feeling? If every person has that feeling, then it's like, why do we even try at all to live together peacefully or have world peace? Because then we're always trying to. Then every person's trying to have this. It gets into an individualism of, all right, I want to go out and.
What is unpeaceful about?
No, it's not. Well, it's unpeaceful because you'll start seeing where everybody becomes. All right, so let's do it without jumping too far ahead.
Yeah.
In a quarter mile, turn left onto West Morgan.
All right, I'm living my life, but I need to, or I want to go do something. And within that, there is. So why do we need to go? Where does that even come from? Why do I have to go do that in the first place? Is it because I'm
Turn left onto West Morgan.
not feeling like I'm living a full life, or it's because I'm not feeling like if I don't do it, then what's going to happen? As far as if I don't, I'm always moving, but to it seems to imply that I'm not satisfied with what's going on now or what I have now, and that I need to move away from something. That's what it implies. Like if all right, I need to plan on going here, seeing this person, or I need to plan on because now it's I like the way it makes me feel. So you are chasing a feeling, or I like the way it makes me feel.
Right. Okay. But like when they canceled it though, that didn't like deter me in any kind of way. I wasn't like, okay, now fuck everything. Like, because the festival wasn't happening. I was just like, damn, okay. We ended up going anyways, and like we did other shit, which like. But I don't think at all. It's like it's not exactly trying to like fill no void. It's just like the whole point of like just something you want to do. Like it's just something to look forward to. Like it's like anyone looks forward to a trip.
Yeah, that's cool.
Like
Yeah,
but like what I'm
there's
saying. Like I don't think it's nothing to do with like life in general.
There's nothing wrong with that, but we can see how people have that. Everybody has that. Everybody has something
Right.
where, and then some people don't know how to, if they're handle
not
it
as fortunate,
much, or
they're not able to. You know what I'm saying? Like those people, but they still find ways to make them.
But why do
happy.
people? Then we start seeing how that creates the whole conflict of humans being just very much discouraged in life, or because what you're talking about is just we're looking at the magnitude of that within everybody.
Yeah.
So whether it's something that either spurs evil or something that spurs poverty, but somehow you're creating, somehow that within people is going to create this suffering, this longing. But we're just starting to see how within people that varies. But that whole thing you're talking about going through or doing, you have your way of being able to do it and deal with it. But we see whatever this is, it's just implying that there's a lack in me. Or not a lack in you, but because we're not talking about right or wrong here, but we can see this whole conception or this whole progress of something. So I'm living, and then within whatever I'm doing, if I'm a farmer, if I'm working at my job as a stalker, if I'm a carpenter, I feel like I need to be doing something else, or I feel like I need to go visit something, or I feel like I need to go do something, or if it's evil, kill someone. I mean, but that's all just looking at it very deeply of that concept of I'm living my life and I need to be doing more. I need to be heading somewhere within a timeline. I need to be doing something. I need to be having pit stops, or I don't know, I need to be, either becoming something, or there's an event in my life that I need to be doing besides what I'm doing now. And we haven't said like it's bad or wrong, it's just like that's the mirror of what's going on. So within that stream, there's our consciousness, there's us as human beings, and that we're not different because we all have what you're exactly talking about. We all have a certain, here I am in life, but here's where I want to be, here's what I want to be doing. And where I'm at now, I'm planning for the future. I'm in the future. I'm thinking about the future. I want to be somewhere in the future. I want to do something in the future. And then if something doesn't happen, there is a certain, because it's not just with events, but if something doesn't happen as far as with anything, people passing on, with wars going on, with a close family member of mine, something getting sick or getting raped or so and so, there's always a certain, this is that whole deepness of what you're talking about. It's just looking at on a deep level of here's where I'm at now, here's where I'm at in the future. I don't want this to be the future, I want this to be the future. And I'm not just in the moment now of no past, no future. Because if I have no past or no future, if I'm not thinking about that kind of stuff, then there is no conflict. But that doesn't mean that our imagination doesn't need to start going like, well, I can't plan. No, you can still buy tickets, you can still plan ahead, you can still do stuff. But my life isn't lived. That whole concept of here I am now, here's where I need to be, here's where I want to be. I need to be doing something, living life, or just being happy. Where's my next stepping stone of being happy? And in the moment I feel peace, but I want to feel this anxiety, I want to feel a rush, I want to feel that. Otherwise, if I didn't want to feel those things, I wouldn't do it. So that's what we're looking at, just humanity and doing that. But can a person just step out of that? And doesn't mean they're not going to do those things. We don't need to get into what we're going to imagine that being. But can I step out of that and just live a life where there's no past and there's no future? Like, what is my relationship going to be with life? What is my relationship going to be with the war?
What do you mean by no future? What do you mean by...
that's why I was going to go to this question, because I think this question is better. What is my relationship with what I see in life? So you know that animals are being slaughtered. You know that there's a war, like we just left Afghanistan. You know that there's murderers out there. I mean, you also know the happiness, that the feeling of your favorite team winning a Super Bowl. You know what it feels like to go to the Grand Canyon. But if we look at that all on a deep level, is that just not all a joy or a happiness of...
I'm talking about your future. What do you mean by no future?
Well, no future just means I'm not living in the future. There's not me sitting here driving or doing my job and I'm constantly thinking about the future, or I'm thinking
so
about...
like never ever, like, so basic, not saying never ever, but like you're saying like stop thinking about, oh, I'm gonna do that one day. Like basic, because that's like thinking about the future, right? There's like, oh man, I'm gonna go there one day. That's like thinking about the future.
If it comes, it comes, but
that's what I'm saying.
You're not attached to it, so your thoughts are already there. Like there's right. Already who you are.
Right, but that's how I look at like going to the Super Bowl. It's like something that I see that in my future because it's something that I want. It's somewhere I want to go. And but at the same time, if it never happens, I'm okay with that too. because like it's never happened already, and I'm doing just fine, and I'm able to watch it on TV still and still experience
But
it.
some people don't.
But, like,
some people, their future doesn't manifest, and they get lonely. Some people's future don't manifest, and they feel bad about themselves, or they go and rob and kill because they need to get that money to get those tickets. So it's not like you can handle it, or you know how to. But we're looking at that whole thing in people, which doesn't make you any different than anybody else. What makes us different is that we get lost in emotions, or we get lost in feelings.
But no future.
And so, is there a way that I can step out and just be like, I'm not attached to my future? Like, all right, I have a thought of a future, or something happens, and there's a certain way I'm going to go. And we're not talking about going with the flow, because we're looking at thought and how thought always creates a certain, again, it hears something, and then it puts a certain biasness on it, or your thought starts to put a certain way that things are going to be as soon as you hear it. But we're looking at just the fact of, yeah, all right, here's I'm not trying not to think about my future, but because these are all for us to think about ourselves. I'm not telling you not to think about the future, nothing, but it's looking at, all right, does somebody that's always thinking about the future, what that does to them? Like, is that going to create conflict in some way? Even if we're looking at how can I eliminate conflict totally? How can I not get hung up and miss somebody, and not get hung up and want something to be a certain way, even if it's for that moment? Like, can I stop the brain, or not stop the brain, but stop the whole process of jumping on, say it's making it, we gotta make it into something, make it into a train. So I'm having thoughts, I'm having a certain thought about the future, or a certain want, but I'm not jumping on that train and staying on it. I'm just like seeing it, letting it move, and I just let it move, and I see it, I let it move, but I'm not gonna somehow put anything on it. I'm not gonna let that make me scared. I'm not gonna let it make me want something. I'm not gonna have any conflict within that. And then the same thing with the past. If here comes a certain feeling, can I get rid of that whole feeling of misery, the whole feeling of suffering and conflict? Can a human being do that? And what would happen, because we see how people act now, I mean, and then where do we think it's going to go? Is it ever going to stop? So why is it, at least in a certain education system, brought up with asking those questions? And then when your brain starts to say, I'm stuck, or your brain starts to think like, oh, it can't be like that, or my brain, like, why does your brain start to do that? Because we said physically, I'm going to move away from fire. So mentally, if I see that, okay, this is causing this is what violence is, this is what being greedy is, this is what and so I'm adding to the whole suffering of the world, then what are you going to do about it? So what is your relationship to life? And when I say what is your relationship to life, not only the happiness and the joy and wanting to do something, but your relationship to the wars, to the young girls that are always raped, to the murder, but we're not aware of that.
But like, what do you mean by that? Like, how do we feel about those things? Because
what are we doing about it?
Okay, but if we're not if we're not around them, I'm just saying, this is a story here on the news that happened like in whatever state. Like, I mean, what do you want me to like how they made fun of the Amber Alert on Facebook, where when you get it on your phone, everybody just like jump into action and leave and go start looking for the vehicle and the kid?
No, I don't want
to. But no, that's what I'm saying. They're like, well, what do you mean then? What are you gonna do about it? If I mean,
well, psychologically, what are you gonna do about it? I mean, are you gonna do we as human beings start to ask, all right, why is that girl being raped? Why is there a war? Why are we pulling out of Afghanistan? What is my role in all of that? And then what am I doing about it? And then our first thought's going to be, oh, you mean to start a campaign to protest? I didn't say that. I'm asking you. And then why does our brain start to somehow then and then we're going to take it to the bigger picture. Why does our brain tend to then justify, okay, this is why I don't need to be involved in that. This is why I don't need to do anything, because what you're expecting me to do this or do that. No. But psychologically, people aren't going to do something physically if they're not psychologically within thought, or if there's not a certain conditioning in the brain. So what are we doing about us psychologically?
I think what we do about it is not do it ourselves. Like, I mean, like that's, I think, is the biggest, like, I mean, because obviously we're talking about this, not everyone's going to think the same.
But that's where we
like, what if I'm a rapist, but and you're not. So you're obviously doing your part
Well, what
because
about-
you're not
what
a rapist.
about
but
greed or
I'm
violence?
just like, fuck that shit. Greed, same thing.
So that's good. So we look at that. We look at greed. We look at a rapist as, okay, raping on physically. Or if I'm greedy,
And that's greedy emotionally. Like all you care about is what you want, and not what this person is going through, the pain and the suffering you're putting them through to get what you want out of that.
all right.
So you know what I'm saying?
So you say that. So when I buy a plane ticket, or I'm paying taxes. I'm paying taxes to a government that's then funding wars, that's buying certain things. You are not guilty for giving the taxes to the government that's
Especially
already given all the guns to the Afghanistan that's already have
especially if it's
the Taliban
it's
took
a
over.
law though. Like yeah, it sucks, but they kind of made it a point, like made it a rule that we got to pay taxes. So like obviously once it's written and etched in stone, there's nothing you can do. It's a rule. So like that's just like, hey, don't wear your shoe. Like take your shoes off before you walk on my carpet.
So
that's a rule. I'm gonna always do that. Just like them. It's like, hey, you know what? Every time you get paid, you're gonna pay taxes. We get some of that, and that's just how it's always been. And it's a rule. So like that's like you're never gonna
So
go
then
into
why
a
do
job and be
people-
like mad because you pay taxes.
Why do people keep hiring presidents that are fine with war, that are fine with all of that? So the people don't hire an authority, or we're always looking to authority.
And it's crazy because they don't hire a president. We vote for them. Like I mean,
Yeah.
I'm
So
just
again,
saying, that's
everybody's got to
people-
take responsibility
I'm just
for
saying,
it.
we vote the president in. So I mean, allegedly, it's the electoral votes
So we're
that
saying-
really matter. We found that shit out, but whatever.
So we're saying we can't get away from that. But why don't people have conversations like we're having, like in the education system, or at least this whole conversation is just showing us? Then why don't I talk like that? Because if your brain has never even thought about the concept of like, all right, what is violence? What is greed? What is rape? And we're always just taking for what we hear from other people, which is always a superficial level. Then we're always manipulated by the leaders, by the authority. We're always looking for the authority. I'm always looking for somebody to tell me what rape, what greed is, what violence is, or what happiness is, and what joy is. And I don't answer that for myself, which then leads to everything that's going on right now with like there's no way I cannot be guilty for doing me buying a plane ticket, or me paying taxes. I'm funding everything. So everybody that causes a big uproar with President Biden, you're either voted for President Biden or President Trump, and they're all going to be the same thing. They're all going to somehow want to fund war. They're all going to have the same agendas on a deep level, but we're always looking at the superficial level.
Well, especially if someone's trying to take us to war. Like you know, say that we're not gonna. I don't think we want.
But where's the president that knows
somebody else wanted to take us to war?
We can't find nobody, or we can't create a society, or we can't start asking questions, or eventually down the road where there's not a person that I think people all can talk to each other. Like where's the world working together? And so you start to see this on a microscopic level. Okay, why don't the people work together? Well, you have different religions, you have different countries. We think that, man, it's 2021, and you think that there's progress. We keep putting on TV the whole equality thing, or the whole putting transgenders on there, putting black people on there, and we're putting all this stuff superficially, but you're not getting rid of the tribalism, you're not getting rid of individualism, you're not getting rid of groups. They're all there still. I'm still going to be my America, the Taliban, the Russians, there's still the Christianity, the Muslims, the Eastern, there's still the blacks, and nobody's having the conversations of like, why are we looking at things deeper? Where's the education for, this isn't philosophy, but look at the fact, put the mirror up to, okay, you're all this, like, intelligence is, I can look at TV, I can look at what Netflix is doing and see that, and see what it's doing. I can look at the president and not be so caught up in the politics, but to be like, this is what a president does, this is what us going to a leader does, this is what people do when I can look at my actions and what my actions do, and it's not right or wrong, but when I go to a basketball game, or I'm buying a basketball player's jersey, okay, people, you hear it all the time, say that there's economic division, but you're spending all your money on Jordans, you're spending all your money on jerseys, you're spending all your money on sports. Oh, but I'm mad because of the economic division. And you're not having a conversation with your friend about, why is there economic division? Where does that come from? What is greed? Money? Or oh, my brother died, or, you know, as far as drive-bys or killings in the hood, and it's like, well, why is that happening? Instead of, I'm gonna go retaliate, or oh, I need to be a bigger man, I need to be brave, and everything's just so superficial, and our brains, because of the way we're brought up, because of our education,
Oh, shit, this picture.
doesn't know how to think deeper, on a deeper level. And we think that we know how to think on a deep level, but it ends up at a certain point, people get frustrated, they don't have patience, or they imagine things, or they say, I'm stuck, I can't move anymore, they say, I'm confused. But you can see the fact of what comparison does, or what my money is doing when I go and do this. And so we don't expect you to change a certain action, but we expect you to see it, to think deeper, right? What am I going to do about it from that point? What am I going to do from this point? And to keep going deeper and deeper until you can see that we are violent, that we are greedy. I cannot not be those things.
We go to war.
Yeah, and we do those things. And so, but then we create a society. So we're just shining a mirror. When people, I think, maybe hear my conversations or hear me talk, I'm not trying to show you nothing. I'm trying to get to nothing. But let's show a mirror, and then let's get the brain to actually start thinking. The brain can do so much technology-wise, but what about psyche? Through the psyche, what about my brain and what I can do for myself, for just looking at what society's done, what humans do, what my actions do, and how there's no difference between me and anybody else, that on a deep level we're all just trying to fulfill, we're all trying to get to the next step, we're all trying to be on a timeline, we're all trying to become something, we're all trying to do that.
I think so.
Yes.
But I don't know, I still don't know about the whole, like, what is life thing. Like,
Well, what is life just means there's no wrong. What is life? Life is driving. Life is
there's no right or wrong
we just wanted to see, right, what is life? Like there's no. My brain doesn't need to start taking it to like make this is not a trick question. It's just like, yeah, what is life? Well, life is misery, life is death, life is life is happiness, life is joy. Now, what is my relationship pretty much to all that? What am I doing about rape? What am I doing about death?
Relationship with God.
What am I doing about happiness? Well, your relationship with God, I mean, I don't know what that means. But we have to ask him what God is. That'd be a whole other conversation. So we touch somehow, what is your relationship with love? Or what is your relationship with an intelligence? Because as human beings, it causes conflict. Yeah, I love when you talk about God, because it's like with religion. If I'm starting to, I can talk about God, but I can't create a story, and I can't say you got to believe this way within this God. We need to look at, all right, what is God on a deep level? Why is our brain always going to stories? Our brain is always trying to make up something. God, what does it mean by God? I mean intelligence, and I mean love. That's it. I don't care the whole story of Christianity. I don't care about the story of Eastern. Who cares where we came from? What matters now is the present and how we treat each other and how we get along with each other. But we want to stick to our groups. Our brain wants to be like, well, I'm a Christian and you're a Muslim, and you can't come into my church and talk about that kind of stuff here.
You know that we need a higher power to look up to?
The higher power is us. If we just hold ourselves, if we can learn to think deeply, you're gonna be the higher power. There's not the higher. What does that even mean? The higher power to look up to? Because you see what it does. If we're talking about the higher power to look up to, you're looking at an intelligence. I want to not look up to something pretty much. I want to look into something. I want to find out what intelligence means. I talked about this on the last podcast. So my intelligence is going to be no thought. When I start putting thought to things, I start creating Christianity. I start creating, I start putting thought to my emotion and my sensation. I start to create desire. I start to, which is all part of that stream of that consciousness. But we see, when I start to do those things, I can already see what that's done. So if we're not talking about higher power, I can already tell you, you're not talking about Christianity, you're not talking about Eastern Buddhism, or any religion, because religion is not higher power. So boom, just keep it there. So higher power, yeah, higher power and intelligence, to see what human beings do to each other, to see what my actions do totally, not just in my vicinity, but right, me doing this, me paying for taxes, but the God is not, it's an intelligence, because I guess I've got to define God, because God is not going to be something that's some kind of thing out there. There's an intelligence. All I can see and observe with facts is that there's an intelligence that has created me, has created the tree. Somehow I'm alive. I'm not concerned with where that came from at all. But then what is that inside of me of that creation, of that love, that I'm not going to mess with the trees, I'm not going to mess with the grass, but people always want to mess with each other and tell each other what to do. And I think that's love, to bother you, to get in your ear and tell you what you're doing wrong, and that, or you don't believe in this or that. And then what that ends up doing and to think deeply of like where that came from. Like why do human beings do that then? Why do I have to feel like I have to be frustrated by something you do, and we're all chewing the same food, just some people chew a little louder, but we all want the same thing. We all want love, we all want acceptance, we don't want to feel suffering, we don't want to feel conflict.
Yeah.
But we love to just put hate on somebody, to be like, you're trying to, and they're just, the whole war of the Korean War and the Americans in the 50s or 60s, whatever, I'm not the smartest, but they were just trying to fight for whatever they were trying to fight for, and we're trying to fight for whatever, and so nobody sees the other side of it. And to be like, man, we're fighting a war, we're justifying killing, we're praying to a God to kill these people, that makes no sense. That's not even rooted in fact. And to just, what's fact is that we're human beings on this earth, we're all one consciousness, sharing the same suffering, the same acceptance, the same versions of what we think love is. And love just means a coming together. Love is just what's going to come together. And if I look at my life and I think that I have so much love, how much am I bringing things together? Just in my family I'm bringing things together? And then what is that? Because I can look at love and I guess that whole other conversation, but it's a distorted version. We put emotion to love. We put a certain attachment to love. And if you even look at the Bible and what people say about God and free will. Now we're getting on the right track of love. There is no attachment there. There's letting you do what you want to do. There's no holding on to something, and then realizing love, seeing the intelligence within everything, that death is a part of life, and that when somebody dies, there's still the same consciousness of that stream still flowing, so nobody even ever dies, but you don't think deeply about it, and if somebody hears that, they're like, oh, this is getting in, he's full of nonsense, or this and that. It's like you don't even think deeply about it. Like, look what happens when somebody dies. What's still around? The suffering's still around, the love's still around, the acceptance is still around, the whole thing of equality is still around. So I die, my individuality dies off, but this whole thing of moms and their relationship with kids and friends and all that, it's still around. But we're distortedly fucked up psychologically with our versions of what things mean, because thought comes in. And that thought comes from our outside perception, which is good to see the outside perception, but then we need to start, your brain, we don't educate or we don't work on, it doesn't need practice, but just to be like, deeply think about it. And then when we deeply think, to not get shut off and be like, all right, I don't have any more patience, like screw this, and I scold somebody because they're asking why all the time. Or to put my own imagination to it and be like, well, if that happened, then this is gonna happen. And it's like, we don't think first about it. Think deeply about what we're talking about. And that's all it is. That's all these are. Don't be so quick to react. Don't be so quick to give an answer, and to just sit, think what is actually possible of something totally different that thought has nothing to do with. And thought's always a part of us, but I think you understand what I'm saying when I say thought's not, I'm not putting a thought to the tree. The thing, I just see, man, there's these, if it was for me, if I had to give an answer, which I'm not telling anybody else is the answer, but I'd look at a tree, or I look at books, or I look at a mailbox, and it's just structures, or just things that come up. That's just, and then I ask, okay, where does that come from? And these are things that people have built to try to make a certain life better, and there's beauty in that. But then I put the thought to it. If I put my thought to, all those mailboxes come from a fucking, Democratic Republican government that was set up by the man, and this and that. Or if I get into, the trees are all cut down, and there's not enough trees, and if your thought starts to create this conflict, you start to create this hate. Yeah, it's like, stop putting all that to it. And if you can start with yourself, you put that into the consciousness. You start to create something new. You start to step out of the stream and what that means. But then don't think too hard about it. That's what it is. Here's the stream of consciousness. Here's the suffering, the conflict. Here's all the greed and the violence. Here's what we do as humans. And then what can I do? How is it possible for me to step out of that? And then just ask that. But sit with it deeply. Let it sit with you. If it's not that moment, days later. But we see how we're raised. We're raised with everything being yours. We're raised with competition. We're raised with, you got to do this. We're raised, and we're not raised
society
with just the psychological part of it all. Technology, I'll say it again before I guess we get to the end, but technological wise, we've made progress, so much progress in the last 100 years. the psyche stayed the same for the last 10,000 years. It's tribalism. There's still suffering. There's still conflict. There's still rape. There's still my needs. There's still. But if I look at physically, I can move out of something. Physically, I'm gonna always try to. We're always physically trying to make a better society. We're always physically trying to make things safer. But psychologically, where is the education at? Where is the? I don't know. Where is the whole language, the whole linguistics, the whole art of that? And that's what would be real art. I mean, and it's worth talking about it because everything from there is going to eventually just make everything else make sense. It's going to put everything in its place.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to do, just put things in their place. Like, yeah, you want to go on your trips and all that, you put it in its place, and you see what it does, and it's like, okay, boom, boom. And then it ends up giving you peace. Who knows what can end up coming out of that with, like, making it, I mean, just using the metaphor, I hate using those, but of like, all right, I eat good, but I eat better, and damn, I didn't know I could feel this good. Or I've tried something else, and like, damn, I didn't know that you could feel like that. Or I start working out, like, damn, I didn't know I can get this. I didn't know this could happen.
Right,
so we're so stuck in our perceptions that until you try something new and just try it and do it for a while, see what actually happens. And we're not really talking about actions here. People have done all the actions in the world. We're talking about just psyche. The way when you see suffering come in, what do you do about it? When you see fear come in, what are you doing about it?